This week's Murray's Mates is brought to you by GPD Mortgage Solutions of Greenock. Whether you're a first-time buyer or want to remortgage your home, Sean and his team will find the right deal for you. Take out a mortgage or insurance policy with GPD Mortgage Solutions and you will receive a free will. Plus, tell them you heard this advert on Murray's Mates and they will make a £50 donation to Largs Thistle. Applying for a mortgage is easy with GPD Mortgage Solutions. Find them on Facebook at www.facebook.com/GPD Mortgage Solutions or visit www.gpdmortgagesolutions.co.uk. That's www.gpdmortgagesolutions.co.uk. Alright guys, welcome back to another Murray's Mates. We've got a belter of a guest this week, one of the nicest guys I've ever played with in football, Kev Struthers, making a comeback on the Largs Thistle Twitter. Mate, Kev, what's it like to be on? What's it like to be back?
Oh, it's good, mate. It's I've missed it, to be fair, so it's good to see a few familiar faces.
Albeit you can't actually see Paul's face in the podcast. Not that everyone can actually tell that, but Paul is with.
Just put it out
there.
I'm just essentially observing today. So.
How's it been? How's lockdown been treating you, Kev?
It's I can't complain, to be fair. I've got 3 kids, so there's a bit of a distraction, bit of a major distraction there, and also I've been working right through as well, which has been good in a sense that it kind of gets me out of the house and gets me some sort of normality. I know there's loads of people out there that are literally stuck in and with kids as well and can't get out and about, and it's people like that I feel for, do you know what I mean? But so I'm not going to complain about my position. Obviously the restaurant's closed, which has been a bit of a nightmare, but there's more important things going on, and we'll ride it out and hopefully get back opened when it's more safe to do so.
But like you're saying, there's no football going on just now, but Kev, you've got plenty of career to look back on, to be fair, a lot more than Corey Hughes anyway. It's definitely an upgrade on him for last time. You started out at Morton. How did that come about? How did you get into the kind of pro youth setup or whatever it was there?
Well, I wasn't actually in a pro youth setup as such at Morton. I started my boys' club career at East End United at probably, 9, 10. I played there for a couple of years, and then there was another team who were Morton Supporters Club, boys' club, who played the same kind of Greenock District League as us, but they eventually left the Greenock District League and moved into like a kind of Glasgow league. So I kind of fancied, obviously, playing in Greenock and Inverclyde, you're playing against the same teams every year. So even at that age, I kind of fancied going and playing against teams in Glasgow and stuff. So they changed their name from Greenock Morton Supporters to Stenhousemuir. So there was an affiliation to Stenhousemuir Football Club, although we were based in Greenock. So I joined them, played there until under 12s, and then from under 13s onwards, I signed an S form. It was an S form at the time. You'll probably not know what they are, Murray, with your age, but at the time. And I signed that at 13 and played with the Stenhousemuir Pro Youth right up until I got to under 16s, and then there was a wee bit of interest from, like, at that age, obviously you could go full time with clubs, and but there was a bit of interest from Morton, but there wasn't anything like full time. So I joined their under 18s team, although I could have still played like 17s or whatever it was. I joined their under 18s team at the time, and halfway through the season they invited me to go in full time. So basically I had just started 6th year. I was 16, and it wasn't even. It was maybe August, September time. Just the end of August, start of September, Morton had offered me to go in full time. So obviously, every young boy, that's your dream, innit? If you're into football, you want to leave school and you want to go and play football full time. So I was lucky enough that I got that opportunity, and I jumped at it. Left school, was full time with Morton. Was probably at the time it was Dave McPherson that was a manager, ex Rangers and Hearts centre half, and Stevie Frail was his assistant. So I left school, went in, was in full time for a couple of weeks. Dave McPherson, unfortunately, I thought he was a great manager, but unfortunately he left, and John McCormack got a manager who was previously Queen's Park. So he came in. I made my debut for the first team in October, November time. So I'd been in about the first team, like on the bench and stuff, and actually made my debut in I think it was end of October, start November, something like that. Obviously, loved it. Learned loads off the guys that I played with. It was an experienced Morton team at the time with some really good young players as well. Guys like David Hopkins had come in. He finished his career there. Guys like Derek Collins, Warren Hawke, Alex Williams was a great player at the time. And later on, at the end of that season, the start of the following season, they brought in guys like Peter Weatherson and just Eddie Annan, just guys with loads of experience that you can learn off of. But things didn't work out. It got to a stage I wasn't enjoying it. So I kind of fell out with football a bit, to be honest, and decided to leave Morton. And as soon as I'd left Morton, my old coach from Stenhousemuir had got in contact with me and says, look, I hear you're a bit disheartened with football, blah, blah. Do you fancy coming back out and playing with us? Obviously, Stenhousemuir were part-time, but it was like you would play with the under-18s, and there was a few guys that I knew, guys who I'd played with at Stenhousemuir at youth level, had made their way right through it, and they were at the under-18s at this time. So I'm thinking, a couple of guys, faces that I know, familiar faces. Obviously, I'm dropping down to play at my own kind of age group again. But I was like, it was comfortable for me, to be honest. It was a comfortable decision. I had trials at other places. I actually went down on trial with Everton for a week after I'd left Morton, and really enjoyed the experience. Away from home at 18, down south at a club like Everton's, obviously facilities were brilliant. Played a couple of games, scored a couple of goals over the 2 games, but nothing came of it, obviously. Well, clearly wasn't good enough. So I was sent back up the road packing, and as I say, went to Stenhousemuir, played in the under-18s and the reserves for a kind of chunk of that season. And then at the end of that season, I can't even remember what season that would have been, but I think I played the last 5 or 6 games in the first team just to end that season. So coming off the back of that season, I was like, right, if I go and have a good pre-season, make sure I'm fit, going back into pre-season, hopefully I could kick on in the first team at Stenhousemuir. And then it felt, at this time I was only 18, 19. 19 probably. And every day I picked up a paper, it was like Stenhousemuir sign a striker, Stenhousemuir sign 2 strikers. And you're like, right, I'm up against it. It was all experienced guys that were signing, and they already had an experienced team. Guys like Paul McGrillen was there at the time. John Paul McBride, who was previously at Celtic, who on his day was like ridiculous how good he was, like unbelievable. But he could turn it on and turn it off whenever he wanted. He was far too good to be playing at that level at Stenhousemuir. But I don't know, just what people's journeys take them different ways. But so they had a kind of experienced guys there, but kept adding to it over that summer. So I went back at pre-season, done the full of pre-season, done all right, played a few games, and then the manager, who was Des McKeown at the time, who again was a great guy, he's suggested going out on loan to Kilbirnie because Tommy Bryce was a manager there, and he had played at Clydebank with Tommy, and Tommy was looking to bring in new players at Kilbirnie at the time. So, and obviously travelling was only from Greenock, you're only, 35 minutes to Kilbirnie. So that's where I ended up. That was my first junior experience, getting sent out to Kilbirnie on loan for Stenhousemuir.
And then what's the difference like between junior and senior football? Because I always find that you see it a lot when they play each other in the cup, and obviously we're part of that setup now. I don't think there's a huge gap between top junior teams and teams that are kind of flirting with towards the bottom of the Scottish football setup. I
totally agree with that. 100%, especially when you look at the top junior teams in the top end of the top league at junior, obviously holding their own. Obviously Talbot are brilliant at what they do. Like, you can't deny that. They're really, really good at what they do, very well organised. And I think at junior level as well, it's been able to keep the nucleus of a team together for a length of time, and a manager, like consistency, basically. Just if your clubs get consistency, then you tend to find that's the clubs that tend to do well. And I agree.
Look at us in your last season, for instance.
Exactly. Well, that's it in a nutshell. That's it. See if we could have kept that the kind of nucleus of that team together for a couple of seasons. Who knows? Do you know what I mean? But sometimes that's the way it works. Sometimes it's like.
I must say, I felt a bit nostalgic even some of the names you mentioned. You played with at Stenhousemuir. Paul McGowan being one, sadly. Paul McGowan's, of course, passed away a few years ago. And I hadn't actually, I've just posted a link to this chat. Obviously, this is carried over Zoom. I've posted a link to this chat of an article of you as a 16-year-old at Morton. And you look a bit different now. You've got a lot more hair. And you've got a lot more hair. That's what I'll say. And also,
you just don't know what
I just realised you turned 30. Also, I just realised you turned 35 recently. So happy belated birthday.
I did die a couple of weeks ago, 35. So see the season that I had get put on loan to Kilbirnie. I think the following season, I really enjoyed it. My first season at Kilbirnie was brilliant, right? Don't get me wrong. I think I come into junior football at the tail end. Junior football's changed a lot, right? Since I started playing until now, I've kind of come through a transition without even realising it. But when I started playing junior football, it was like, I know for a fact Des McCune was sending me on loan to toughen me up. And back in the day, that's what happened. Guys for senior clubs get sent out to play at juniors because you were playing against big men. You weren't playing even like reserve football and senior football. What we're talking about, Murray, the difference could be a bit of discipline. There's a bit more discipline in your game than there is in the juniors, and that was one of the things that hit me massively when I went to play junior, because believe it or not, younger I used to be quite quick, and we played in the Ayrshire District League with Kilbirnie, and I don't know, when Tommy put that team together, he had experienced guys, right? So he had Stevie O'Neill, who was a goalkeeper, Anton Smith, who actually played with at Morton, was there as a centre half. John Todd, Davy Wilson, Liam McGuinness was only a couple of years older than me, so he couldn't really be classed as one of the experienced ones. There was wee kind of speckles of experience through a brand new young team that he'd brought in for guys like guys at 21s. Just they've played their last year at 21s, or guys for under 19. So in amongst that experience, you had obviously Liam McGuinness, Mark Caldwell, Davy Anderson, Chris Erskine, Jamie Longworth. There was Neil Rankin, who was I travelled with. He was for Greenock. There was, see, looking back at that team, we were spoiled. Like when you see what those guys went on to achieve, and even junior careers that guys went on, it's that team was special. Do you know what I mean? The first season that I get put on loan, we missed out in promotion, right? But you could see that we had a right good side. So I enjoyed it that much that when I went back to Stenhousemuir, before I even went back to Stenhousemuir, I had an idea that I was going to get released because I was only getting brought in for reserve games here and there, right, that season. And so I says to Tommy Bryce before the season finished, like, listen, I've loved it here. If I leave, if whatever happens with Stenhousemuir, if I get released or whatever, do you mind if I come back here next season? He's like, definitely, just let us know what happens at the end of the season and we'll sort it out. So eventually I left Stenhousemuir and signed for Kilbirnie. And we kept that nucleus of team together, and we added a few as well. And the second season I was there, in fact, the first season when I was there on loan, we got to the West of Scotland Cup final and get beat 2-1 off Petershill.
Not also in the Ayrshire District. Am I not wrong in saying, was that not when you were in the Ayrshire District League team as well, or was that the previous?
It was, Paul. We were still. We didn't get promoted in our first season, but we got to the West Cup final, and that was my first season junior. I just thought this is an on. I hadn't really paid much attention to juniors before that because I was only a young boy, and I didn't really. It wasn't an ignorant thing, but I didn't really know much about juniors. But on that first season, we got to West of Scotland, and people were saying, "This is what an achievement this is, getting to the West of Scotland Cup final." But I was just like, whatever. When you're young, you don't really think about it that way. You just crack on and do whatever you've got to do. So we get beat 2-1 in the final. And then the second season, when I signed, my first full season as a signed player at Kilbirnie, we won the Ayrshire District without losing a game. And we got to another West of Scotland Cup final, and we beat Pollock 5-1 in the final. It's crazy, do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. But
and you scored 28 goals that season.
There you go. There you are. That's another start. And off the back of that season as well, see that season you're talking about, Paul. East Stirling come in at the end of the season and asked me if I wanted to go and sign with them. So I took the opportunity. Spoke to Tommy Bryce and Digger at the time, who was his assistant, and they were like, "That's fine. Like, if you want to take the opportunity, go for it." So that following season, I ended up going to East Stirling for a spell as well. So, that was it. But again, travelling and stuff was a bit of a killer. See, travelling through to Falkirk and stuff, it was tough going between, because you're working, you're travelling through to Falkirk for training, and then on a Saturday you could have been anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Playing that third.
For context for listeners, at the time, East Stirlingshire were still members of the Scot. They were in what was then the third division at the time. Obviously, they are now a lower league team, but at the time they were in the third division. For context,
it was only when promotion relegation get brought in, they get kind of knocked in the leagues. But I think that's what kind of holds back a lot of the teams at that level. Is just almost just the area they're in. I mean,
definitely,
you're
going to struggle to attract boys to travel near and far for the sake of playing part-time football when there's teams that are offering similar, if not more money, to be playing out your back garden pretty much. And what was it about the kind of another crack at senior football that kind of appealed to you? Was it just that kind of having another shot at it and almost one last shot at it, if you want to look at it like that?
Well, I think at the time I was only 21, so yeah, probably. I think I started enjoying my football again. I think that's what it was. And see, when you're enjoying your football again, the best comes out. Yes, without a doubt. I'd get a bit of confidence back, and that's exactly what it was. The opportunity to come up, and you're thinking, can I put myself in a shop window again and play at that level, and hopefully move on to maybe up a league or whatever. But obviously, sometimes life takes over as well. It's trying to balance work life with football. At times you were finishing work and I was like travelling to go to training, and then you're not getting back in the house till 11 o'clock at night, and sometimes you kind of get the best at yourself. You've got to try and find a balance. With part-time football, there's definitely got to be a balance there of you've got to be professional and ready for your game, but you need to earn a living as well. Do you know what I mean? So there's got to be a balance there.
I think you always see it with kind of you'll have played with a lot of boys towards the end that have came in loan. They'll be playing full-time football, but they're 16, 17, so they're training 4 times a week, and they're coming in, they're playing with Largs, they're doing great, but it is that difference of they're training 4 times a week and their full focus is football. The boys are coming in and training with when they're out in loan are working, 95 or shifts, and then they're coming in and playing their football, and that's their 4 hours a week, so their trainings that they can get out of the house, and they're making a lot of time and a lot of commitment for it in comparison.
If we can go back slightly, Kevin, you were talking about how you started at East End Boys Club, which one, you're not the only person at Largs to have started there, I believe. I might be wrong, but I believe Craig Forbes was there. Obviously, much long after you. You're 15 years older than Craig Forbes.
Mm-hmm.
But this would be obviously... I'm not mocking you here, Kevin, because you're a little older than us. You're not much older. You're only 3 years older than me. So you're not much older than me. But this would have been around about nearly 20 years ago now. You'd have been playing at that level. And see now, there's about, I might be wrong, but there was roughly a handful of clubs in the Greenock area over about age 17. I'd imagine it would have been a lot healthier in your time, possibly. I might be wrong there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Even when you look, there was back when I played, there was I don't remember. We had a full league. I got teams at that age, under 11s. You know what I mean? And it was 11-a-side as well at that time, playing in gravel parks. And obviously, facilities and stuff are much better now than what they were when I started playing as a boy. But you would think there would be more clubs round about now with facilities that are available. But it's sad, isn't it, that it's kind of dwindling away, boys' club football, and especially when you get to that older stage where guys normally find they'll get like 16, 17 and they've got a decision to make. They still want to play football, or some guys have got a part-time job by that time, or whatever, for whatever reason they kind of fall away from football. But I do find it sad. And another thing I find sad with the pro youth setup is there's a lot of pressure on kids now when they go to a pro youth team, that this is the start of a journey and you need to do everything you can and you need to make it. And sometimes when kids get to 16 and it's like they don't get taken on full time, they're like, right, that's it, I'm not going to be a footballer, and they just stop playing football. And at 16, something you've loved for a kid, at 16, for somebody to tell you you're not going to get signed full time with a club you've been at since you were 10, it's a hammer blow. Do you know what I mean? It must be hard for them, and you're not mature enough to take that and think about it and work and think, do you know what, I'll maybe be able to find another club, or I can go and play another level and maybe get spotted somewhere else. When kids are getting released for clubs at 16 now, that it's tough for them, because they're just like, right, that's it, I'm not going to be a footballer now. Because you're seeing guys breaking into first teams at 16, 17 now, and they're thinking, well, if I'm not breaking into a first team, I'm playing reserve football by the time I'm 16, 17, then I must not be good enough. And that's not the case. But kids, you've got to have a bit of belief in yourself, and that was probably a big kind of, I don't know, wouldn't say a feeling, but it was like something that I wasn't great, like confidence-wise as a kid. No matter people telling me like, you're this, you're that, you're a cracking player and blah blah. I'm always hard on myself, and it's something that I'm still at this day, even like playing football and doing anything that I do. Like I'm very critical of myself, and at times that held me back. Is that when I was younger, coming through as a young footballer, that held me back at times, because if I had maybe a wee bit of swag about me and that wee kind of puff my chest out and a bit of self-confidence, who knows, you know what I mean? I maybe could have kicked on, or because you see guys who are kind of limited ability-wise and they've just went on from strength to strength and made a career for it, do you know what I mean? And fair play to these guys. Sometimes I wish I had a bit of that, but that was something that I was lacking, put it that way. It was something I lacked in. And obviously, like my family, if I did get a wee bit too above my peg, I know which I didn't, to be fair, but I know, like, I've got two older brothers, a younger sister, my mum, my dad, even my group of friends, like, it wouldn't have been long to bring me back down to earth, do you know what I mean? But I wouldn't change a thing, to be fair. So what had happened was I had come back, and I think I ended up going to Port Glasgow, and the reason for that was I didn't really, I've had the same group of pals since I was like 11, 12, right? We went through primary school together, we were in the same high school. I'm kind of the younger out of our group, and there's probably about 8 or 9 of us that are close, and we played in the same high school team and that, and I loved playing with my mates. But obviously never really get a chance to do it a lot growing up, because we went our separate ways. Obviously Sean Graham, who's one of my best pals, who was at Largs, the goalkeeper for a while, he was at Stenhousemuir at the same time as me, playing the youth team, but he was a year above me, and he actually went on to go full time with Stenhousemuir, and I opted obviously to go the other way and end up going to Morton. But I did play a couple of games in Sean's team, and I get moved up to play like the year group above a couple of times. So, but apart from that, I never really get a chance to play with my mates. And Sean Graham and one of our other pals, Jed Hoy, was at Port Glasgow, and I knew a lot of the other boys at Port Glasgow, and the chance came to play there, and I thought, you know what, I've travelled like since I was 12, going to Stenhousemuir. Like, I used to get a train for Greenock to Glasgow Central, walk up to Queen Street, get a train for Queen Street to Lardbert at 13, 14 years old, at times when I couldn't get a lift, you know what I mean? So I thought, play local for a wee while, and I went and played at Port Glasgow under Brian Hearn and David Hopkin, who was a coach at the time, and I loved that. I spent 2 seasons at Port, and some of the players that played in that team were unbelievable. Some of the characters as well, but honestly, it was amazing. In fact, my first game that I had went to before I'd even got to a training session, they had a game in the cup section before the league starts, and they were playing Vale Even, and I was actually suspended because I had a red card. I had a red card suspension that carried over for the season before, so I couldn't play. So I went up and done a warm up and met the guys and that, and Andy Monaghan had come up to me, and he shook my hand, and he's like, welcome to Port, and he's like, you'll love it here, you'll absolutely love it. And he wasn't wrong. It was brilliant.
Great player, Andy Monaghan. Great
brilliant
player.
Outstanding, great guy as well.
See the difference of playing with your pals as well. I think the one setback with me compared to you playing with your pals was when I moved from whatever I was doing and I wasn't enjoying it. My pal, to put it nicely, were rotten at football. But it was a great laugh. I ended up playing. I played the field for a half a season, which was horrific, I must admit. I really put my faces doing that, but I went for I was at centre back.
Oh, were you?
I don't know what happened. We went off at half time, and the manager's just having a think, and he's like, I don't know what's went through his head that's made him go, we're struggling to defend this season. What can I do? And he's looked at the keeper and thought, that's it. I'll chuck him in at centre back. That's what he done for half a season. I played it there. It was a great laugh, and then this is what I can't get over. We look through Kev Struthers' previous teams, and it's Morton, Stenhousemuir, Kilbirnie, East Stirling, Port Glasgow, and Ottawa.
Random, eh? How random is that?
Sorry, can I just ask you to
run me through it? Just run me through it all in general.
Murray, sorry, can I just ask you to repeat that because the reception was a little bit rough there. I heard you, but just so the viewers can hear. What club? What club?
Yeah.
Did Kevin move to?
Ottawa Fury.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Canadian.
Random. I know. Right. What had happened was a friend of mine, Craig Smith, is a coach in Canada, right? A football coach, and he was coaching. He was a coach of Ottawa Fury women's team, the female team. So it was home for the summer, and I was talking away, obviously met up with him, and chatting away, and he says that I know a guy who he coached with, an older guy, had got the job at the Ottawa Fury men's team for the season ahead. The guy's name's Carl Valentine, and he's a bit of a legend in Canada, right? Like Vancouver Whitecaps especially. He played with Vancouver Whitecaps and stuff, and I think he played with Oldham here. He's from Manchester originally, but moved to Canada. So Carol Valentine and Craig are good pals and had coached together in Vancouver, but Craig was now a coach at Ottawa Fury, and Carol had just been appointed a coach of the Ottawa Fury men's team. So Craig's at home in Scotland. He's on a Skype call to Carol, saying to him, "That's brilliant, you've got a man, you got a job for the guys' team, and blah blah. How's your team looking for the season, blah blah?" And Carol says to him, "We're looking all right." He says, "But I'm struggling for a striker." He's like, "I'm really struggling for a striker, and I don't know what I'm kind of getting in short, starting the season. It's getting close to the season and stuff." So Craig's like, "Well," he says, "it might be a long shot." He says, "But a pal of mine back home, it's played at a decent level as when he was younger. He's playing kind of junior just now." He says, "But if you want, I can say to him if he fancies it." And Carol was like, "Hi, if you can set up like even a phone call with him or something." So I spoke to Carol Valentine, and he was saying, "Listen, I'm going on Craig's word, and basically I value his opinion, and if you feel that it's something that you can make happen, obviously it would need to happen in the next 3 weeks or something, then we'd be interested in getting you out here." So I was like, right, okay. So I went home and spoke to Lauren, my wife now at the time, my girlfriend, and I says to her, "Listen, I know this is random, but I've got an opportunity to go out and play full time out in Canada. The way their season works, it would only run over like 4 months. They kind of condense it into a 4-month period because their winters are so harsh, so they don't play through the winter." So this was at that time, and I says, "What do you think, Lauren?" And she's like, "Well, go for it." She's like, How often do you get an opportunity like this?" She's like, "Go for it." So I went back and spoke to Ottawa Fury and told them that it was a goer, and they organised, paid for my flights to go out, gave me digs, and I went out there and played for 4 months. But again, this is what I'm talking about this wee, and I don't know if everybody's got this, like, you've got that wee bit of doubt in your head. I flew from here. So basically, Lauren had like a wee going away party for me, and Gary Hughes, who was the editor for the sport part of the Greenock Telegraph, had contacted me and says, "I hear you're going to Canada. Can I come and do a wee spiel on you?" And I was like, "Right, okay." So we came and done a wee spiel on me going to Canada. So the day I was leaving, I flew from Glasgow down to London, and I was sitting in the departure lounge in London, waiting on my flight from London to Ottawa. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what am I doing? What have I done? I was like, so many people know I'm going out here. Like my friends, my family. Obviously, the Telegraph have done this, but anybody interested that looks at the back page for the juniors will see that they've got a player leaving Port Glasgow, have got a player leaving to go and play in Canada, and I start getting the fear at the airport, and I'm like, what if I go here and I don't even get a game? Like, I don't know what the standards like. I don't know who my teammates are going to be. I could go out here and be sitting on the bench. I know you get a strip for this team, and then come back with my tail between my legs, and people saying to me, "How did you get on in Canada?" I'm like, well, it was a bit a crash and burned, and do you know what I mean? But sometimes I think that's a good thing because it keeps you on your toes. See, when you're going out, when you go and you try something new and you're pushed out your comfort zone, it keeps you on your toes because you don't want to fail. And you won't let yourself fail if you've got a wee bit between your teeth. And to be fair, I went out and did quite well and played like 95% of the time. They played on turf, which was the first time that I had actually we trained on like 4G and played in 4G, and it was the first time that I had done that consistently. So I got a wee niggle of shin splints when I was out there after the first couple of weeks, but it cleared up. And that at that time, they had got to the playoff final, and the team had never reached the playoff final before. We get knocked out in the playoff final, but that's the furthest that the club had got. So it worked out fairly successful, and again, great experience. Really enjoyed it, and glad I done it. I actually get the opportunity to do it the following season, but I was getting married, so priorities.
Am I right in saying that is still your display picture on Twitter? You're playing for Ottawa Fury.
Aye, it is. I scored a goal.
10 years on.
10 years on. 10 years on. I look younger now than I did in that picture. What's that?
Laing was healthier than it was then, to be fair.
I know, aye, that's it.
What kind of culture differences is there? Because obviously football's not huge in Canada, but Canada is also absolutely massive in general. And what was it like playing over there, just in as a whole? Well,
the difference in the game was it was like I went out there and they thought I was a brute. Like they thought I was a big bullish centre forward that bullied people, and just things that we would do in a game here, like just using your body and going in front of people and barging people off the ball. You had these guys who are massive, right? I'm talking like you're playing against guys. Everybody you play against is an athlete, right? They're big, physically fit, strong, lean. But see, as soon as you like use your body and you go in and kind of protect the ball or put yourself about, they're like rolling about the ground, and I'm like, what is going on here? And see the amount of yellow cards I got early on, I was like, what is this? But it ended up, obviously, Carl Valentine was English, and he liked that. He liked the fact that he had this centre forward who was bullying people, if you like, and went with one up front. So I was basically playing against two centre halves myself, and just played with wingers off me, and guys didn't know how to deal with it. So for that side of the game, the game was different. That they weren't up to the physical standard that we were used to. We had some cracking players as well. There was a boy, Alexis Prade, who come through at Marseille. This boy was brilliant. Like, what a player! Centre left foot, but a cracker. And he played in the same Marseille team as Frank Ribery and things like that. So we had a good team as well. But culture-wise, like off the park, everybody was into their fitness. Like everybody, see, like. We would train at night because it was too hot to train during the day. So, but see, during the day, guys were like, right, we're going to a gym. And I wasn't really into a gym before I had went to Canada, right? Like going and lifting weights or anything. But I fell into their culture. And I think if you surround yourself with guys who are doing the right things, you end up doing the right things. And that's how, and like sometimes when you see good young Scottish players coming through, I think it's good for them to get a move away. See, like when you see like a boy Hickey going to Italy to play, and other boys kind of going to Germany, obviously. See, I know Frimpongs just went to Germany and things like that. But for young players to go and experience a different culture, it can be a good thing, because I think if you stay with your group of pals, if they're going and doing the wrong things or not looking after themselves, you can fall into that as well. You'll be tempted to go nights out with your pals, but if you're in with guys who are professional and look after themselves, you can fall into that. And that's what I found myself doing in Canada. I was spending my days. Obviously, I didn't know a lot of people apart from my teammates, but during the day I was going to a gym and lifting weights and then going and training at night. So I actually felt as if I come back in better shape than I did before I went.
that kind of pressure, like you're over there, like you said, you're pretty much yourself. If you don't do well, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
So, like you say, you're moving away. That's added pressure. If I don't make it here, then what am I going to do? You're going to end up back home, and you need to say to all your pals that you went out there and made a meal of it, pretty much.
That is a bit of pressure, isn't it?
It's just that kind of.
Aye, definitely. When you think about it, it is a bit of pressure, and I'm kind of glad I realised that in the airport, because if I went out there with a kind of, I don't know, an attitude where I don't really know what I'm doing here and just go out and, but that kept me on my toes. Them thoughts in that airport kept me on my toes when I went out there, and it kind of spurred me on to, right, I need to go out here and play, because if I come back, my mates are going to slaughter me for going all the way to Canada and not getting a game. So it is what it is, and sometimes that's what you need, isn't it, just to keep you on edge.
And then you came back home and you've ended up at Largs. What originally brought you to Sheffield?
Largs. So while I was in Canada, I had come back, and 3 or 4 of the guys that I played with at Port Glasgow. So as I say, we had a cracking team. Paul Coyle, Eddie Walton, Andy Monaghan, Tam Jimison, just good guys, good players. A lot of them had went to Largs, and when I had come back from Canada, me and Lauren went on holiday for 2 weeks. And while I was on holiday, I had got a phone call, and it was somebody from Auchinleck, and they had said to me about going down to Auchinleck, and I was like, right, okay. And then, but Largs had contacted me as well, and Auchinleck were playing a Wednesday night against Maryhill, and I travelled down to the game, actually met their assistant manager at his house, and then halfway jumped in his car and then went to Auchinleck. I couldn't play in the game, but I was there and done a warm-up and stuff. And then again, after the game, drove back, picked my car up at his house, and then drove back up the road. And listen, the opportunity to play at Auchinleck doesn't come along too much for players, right? But when I looked at it, I was like, I could not do that travelling all the time. From Greenock to Auchinleck, it would be ridiculous. And as much as I wanted to join Auchinleck, because obviously they're a big club and a successful club, I had to wait up, and I was like, what would happen here is I would end up travelling to Auchinleck from the start of the season till Christmas, and then I'd be like, I can't do this, and I'd end up leaving, and I didn't want to mess anybody about, and I wanted to be settled somewhere in a club. And so I had spoke to the manager, Tucker, and I says to him, listen, I really appreciate you contacting me and bringing me down, but this is my concern. I might end up getting to Christmas, scunnered away travelling, and I'd end up leaving, and I don't want to mess anybody about. And to be fair, he was like, fair enough, I appreciate you being honest, best of luck. And then I went to Largs, obviously Sandy McLean and Pat McIlvogue, familiar faces again. That was, you might say that was a kind of another comfortable move for me, because I knew a lot of faces. But the season I went, Largs had just been to the Scottish Cup final the year before, so I knew I was going there, and I wasn't guaranteed to play because of the guys they had in the team and because of how successful they were the season before. So it was a bit of a challenger for me to get in the team. So I signed, and that was where it all started.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Murray's Mates with guest Kevin Struthers. Kevin has lots of stories to tell you about his 9 years at Largs Thistle, which will be in our episode next week. Before we finish today's episode, a word from our host Murray.
Everyone here at Murray's Mates would once again like to say thank you to Sean and his team at GPD Mortgage Solutions for sponsoring this week's episode of Murray's Mates. Are you looking for your dream home in 2021? Take the stress out of applying for a mortgage by visiting GPD Mortgage Solutions. Take out a mortgage or insurance policy with GPD Mortgage Solutions and you will receive a free will. Plus, tell them you heard this advert on Murray's Mates and they will make a £50 donation to Largs Thistle. Find them at Facebook at www.facebook.com/GPD Mortgage Solutions or visit www.gpdmortgagesolutions.co.uk. That's www.gpdmortgagesolutions.co.uk.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Catch part 2 of Murray's Mates with Kevin Struthers next week.